Don't go Jason Waterfalls. That was an early one for me.
Was it?
Yeah.
My cousin too. His name is Jason, so he really thought that song was about him.
There's a lot of us out there.
Cousin-in-law.
Don't go Jason.
There's a form of us out there.
It's the IDP Show, now you know.
Welcome to the IDP Show. I'm your host, Josh Raymer, joined in the Sode Shack this afternoon. On my right, Adam Markham. On my left, Bobby Reynolds. And joining us all the way from Lexington, you know him as Professor IDP. It is Scott Soltis. Scott, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me here. I'm excited to be in the Sode Shack.
In the Sode Shack for the first time, making the trek down from Lexington.
Not the Soul Shack.
Not the Soul Shack, as we see here, with the lovely James Brown CD that you brought down for us as a gift.
You know, sometimes you just hear that one lyric and you're so sure it's something and then you realize it's not. That was me with the Sode Shack. I really thought it was the Soul Shack. I was going to see saxophones and records and things when I got here. And then the first time I saw you on YouTube, I was like, nope. Sode Shack. That makes a lot more sense in some ways.
We do have soul.
Yes. And I added a little bit more.
And you
soul.
added some more to it. And we appreciate that.
Don't go Jason Waterfalls. That was an early one for me.
Was it?
Yeah.
My cousin too. His name is Jason, so he really thought that song was about him.
There's a lot of us out there.
Cousin-in-law.
Don't go Jason.
There's a form of us out there. It's
What was the famous one? Pour some sugar on me. What was it? That one gets
everyone
mistaken.
knew that.
Yeah.
I don't think so. That's pretty straightforward and clear.
I think that was a commercial they made out of that.
What are you thinking that getting poured on?
Well, that commercial thought it was pour some shook up ramen, wasn't it?
No way.
That's a commercial. You can go watch it on YouTube.
I think it's pretty clear.
Drop a link in the description for that commercial.
I think it's clear, and I think it's a great song. One of the best songs of all time.
But you thought it was Don't Go Jason Waterfalls.
Yeah, I did. That was, probably 6 or 7 years of age. So that was definitely on VH1 a lot.
Mine is the Elton John Rocket Man. No, up here alone. You know, nobody knows what the words are.
Nobody knows. You just kind of hum through that part.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just kind of hum through that.
Good music.
Yeah, great. We're big music boys.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Love music. So, but welcome, Scott. We gave you the tour of Bowling Green. We did some Mexican food for lunch at Elma's. We've done some disc golf, and we are now here at the Sode Shack and going to be talking some DL and DB for the rookie mega preview. In the back half of the episode, y'all are going to hear from Mike Wallert talking linebackers. But Scott, before we get into it, I think that was your first time playing disc golf. Is that right?
It was. And I think I probably have a little bit of a blister forming, but that's all right. I'll still be able to type as much as I need to. But it was fun. It was fun. I wasn't good. And I didn't expect
Welcome to the club.
Good, but it was a good time.
Yes, it was a good time, Bobo. Appreciate you lending all of us discs for that couple rounds we played there. So it was a good time, though. It was a beautiful day here in Bowling Green, 75 degrees, sunny, nice breeze. So it was just good to get outside, boys.
Beautiful day.
Beautiful day. I appreciate you teaching us the ropes as well.
Yes, sir. I'm exhausted.
Don't forget to send me your Venmo. So
that's true. That's true.
We do owe Bobby for lessons. We do owe Bobby for lessons. So, but yes, on today's mega preview, we are going to be going through all of the positions, DL, DB, and linebacker, getting you set for the NFL draft, which when you're hearing this will be about a week out from the NFL draft. So very excited to dive into the draft content today with you all. Like I said, after the ad break, you are going to hear from Mike Wallert talking all about linebackers. We go over about 10 or 12 linebackers in that part of the episode. But today, Scott, we are going to be talking about DL, DB. I think on your site in years past, you have done the D tackle and D end kind of matchups, the streaming options week to week in season. So this is kind of your bread and butter here with the DL.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been doing the DT deep dive for a couple of years now, looking for some deep defensive tackle plays. Last year, I started doing the defensive end annex of players that are rostered in about 30% or less of leagues.
Nice.
Some names that are now pretty popular, like Yaya Diaby, Tuli Tuiliopo. We're on that list last year. So I love diving deep into players. And I also have some, love for some of the guys at the top of the list too, and looking forward to talking about a bunch of these prospects on the defensive line and in the defensive backfield too.
We got to show some love to the DBs as well. And we've talked a lot about a lot of these guys already. Dallas Turner, Leatu Latu, Chop Robinson, Jared Verse. So what we're going to do today is for paid supporters. You can check out the rookie rankings over at the IDPshow.com. So what we're going to do in today's episode is touch on some DL and DB prospects that Scott has either lower or higher on than Adam and Bobby. We're going to talk about some potential landing spots and frame the conversation that way. So gentlemen, what do you say we kick things off? And let's start along the interior part of the defensive line. Scott, you are much higher on Texas's IDL Byron Murphy than Adam and Bobby. You have him as your 5th overall rookie in this class. Tell us what you like so much about the Texas interior defensive lineman, Byron Murphy.
Yeah, so there are two things that I primarily look for beyond talent. So talent for me is the starting point for all these players. I look at the consensus evaluation across a bunch of analysts using tape, using data, using all these different data points to triangulate what their overall prospect level is. And then from that, I do some adjustments. And for defensive linemen, especially defensive tackles, I like to look at what their PFF stable metric pass rush grade is in true pass rush sets. And then I also like to look at where they are aligned because, I try to avoid those guys that are nose tackles because the snap counts usually aren't quite as high there. And we know snap count is the best predictor of IDP success.
Yep.
So in looking at Byron Murphy, he has 100 in the pass rush grade on PFF in his stable metrics. You can't get higher than 100. So great pass rusher. The stats back it up. The tape backs it up. I think he's going to be someone who can really have an impact on a lot of teams. He primarily plays in the B gap, but he has a little bit of versatility in terms of moving to some other spots, which is also good for him staying on the field. My overall grade for him before those sort of adjustments was a 91 out of 100 based on, again, that consensus. So he has a lot of talent too. It's not just that pass rush. It's not just where he lines up. And the most recent thing I was taking a look at was the wonderful draft guide, The Beast. And in that, there was a great comp to Grady Jarrett. And Grady Jarrett is one of those guys where a lot of times he gets overlooked. But if you can have an IDP that gives you the production of Grady Jarrett for as long as Grady Jarrett has been doing it while he's been healthy, that is a heck of a draft pick. So I really like Byron Murphy, especially after we get out of those top 4 edge players, to be someone who can have a significant impact, have a lot of snaps, and there's a lot of great landing spots for him. And I think he's going to get that draft capital that's ever so important for making sure you have all those opportunities.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit that this is a nice little class for defensive tackle talent. And as Scott mentioned, Dane Brugler's draft guide here, Murphy doesn't have ideal length, but his rare combination of lower body twitch, natural leverage, and power throughout his frame set him apart. Disruptive energy, both as a pass rusher and versus the run. He projects as an impact starter who can play shared nose or 3 techniques, similar to Grady Jarrett. It's a pretty nice comp. If you're drawing that comp, I'm interested.
Yeah. 6 foot, 297, 32-inch arms, 9.21 RES, and he's young. So he was doing all this, at a young age, 21.6 years of age. Yeah, I got to imagine that he's going to be drafted the top 20, I think, in the NFL draft.
Yeah,
so,
Dane has him number 16 overall.
Yeah, no arguments if you want to put him at 1. I mean, I splitting hairs, I think both of these. Is Newton your 2?
Yeah. Okay. Newton is my 2nd defensive tackle.
That's where I've seen that pretty much for everyone.
Yeah. So I think that this is a guy who is probably going to get top 20 draft capital. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think that's not a position of need for the Colts, but I mean, we talk about the Philadelphia Eagles love to stack a strength on a strength. So would not mind at all to see the Colts go with a player like Byron Murphy. But I think there is, Scott, you've got some possible landing spots here. What were your kind of ideal situations? I see the Colts right there, number 2 on the list.
Yeah, so I was looking at a lot of the mock drafts and other sort of ideal ways the draft could play out for various teams. And a few of the names that kept coming up were the Rams, the Colts, and the Dolphins. And I should say a few of the names that I would actually like. There's some other teams that I can't remember off the top of my head that came up and I was like, I don't like that. So I only listed the ones that I think it could be a great fit. Putting Byron Murphy with another young guy like Kobe Turner in LA, or putting him next to DeForest Buckner in Indy, or next to Zach Sealer in Miami. all
and they have a
those are
need there
teams.
now with
Yes.
Christian Wilkins out the door.
Absolutely. So I think he would be a great fit in any of those places. I've seen him mock to the Bengals a decent bit as well. I think he might have to wait a little bit for playing time there, given BJ Hill has played really well for them. And we just got Sheldon Rankins in the offseason, who's a great pass rushing defensive tackle. So I think if he goes somewhere like that, I'll still like him in the long term, but we know so much of fantasy success is having success early because it gets you those continued snaps, gets you that continued opportunity. And so I like players who look like they're going to be in situations to contribute as immediately as possible. And it seems like with the Rams, the Colts, or the Dolphins, he'll have that opportunity without having to be the guy. He's a great number 2 to start off with. And that's why those 3 really jumped out at me as potentially good landing spots.
Bobo, what do you think there? Your Rammies, possible landing spot. Aaron Donald gone next to Kobe Turner. Could be fun.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see what the Rams do in the first round because they haven't had a first round pick in a real long time. Honestly, it's been
a while.
Like Jared Goff, maybe. It's been a long time. I would like to actually look back and see the last first round pick. But yeah, I think that a lot of these interior defensive linemen, you're going to start seeing pegged to the Rams just because, a massive gap now left with Aaron Donald's departure, and they need help in a lot of places, if you want my opinion. But Rams would work. Colts would be fun now with Christian Wilkins gone out of Miami. That might work for the
Miami
Dolphins.
Might
also
be my favorite of the group. That's
really nice.
Yeah, that you've got.
He
here,
wasn't
Scott.
the most productive guy in college.
Yeah,
but he had good pressure rate. Like I think he had a 12.1% career pressure rate, so that's really, really good for a DT. And then the pass rush win rate from last year was tops among defensive tackles. I think it was like 19.2.
True, that's pretty nice.
So
pretty nice.
So that stuff's good, but you do worry a little bit. I'd like to see him be a little more dominant, on the stat sheet. But Chris Jones wasn't very productive in college. Kalijah Cansey wasn't eye popping production wise. So I mean, we've defensive tackles. It's sometimes it takes a little bit longer for these guys to develop, get in good situations.
Yeah.
Get in spots where they can produce.
Yeah.
I think Murphy could be one of those types. He's got all the makings of it. I mean, everything we like, he's got it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. I agree with you, Eddie.
Yeah. And for me, even if the stats aren't there, as long as the underlying skill is. So, if you're getting pressures, if you're getting hits, even if those aren't really lining up the stat sheet to make it seem like, you're really standing out. If you're making that progress, I've made a killing on DTs in the past who have great pressure rates, but haven't been able to convert as much. And then eventually it regresses to the mean. Once you get a lot of pressures, I love finding those guys who have 20, 30 pressures and 2 or 3 sacks and then running out and grabbing them for the rest of the season because things are clicking. They're just not necessarily filling the stat sheet yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move to the next guy here on your list, Scott. And it is Bralen Trice, edge, Washington. Addy has him at 32, Bobo 14. You have him at 12. So you are by far the highest on Bralen Trice. So again, kind of take us through your thought process here. What made Mr. Trice stand out to you?
Yeah. So for edges, what I look for again is that pass rush, because that's where we're getting 90% of our production from edges. A secondary characteristic for me is your run defending. I love those edges that can have a tackle floor. So it's not so much boom or bust. As much as I love playing best ball, whether it's true best ball, modified best ball, any kind of best ball. I know a lot of people play regular set it and play it out starting lineup leagues. So, having a higher floor is a good thing for me. His run defense grade is okay, is a 78 in terms of those stable metrics according to PFF. His pass rush grade is incredible.
Yep.
So I can't argue that at all. But one of the things that I did notice in the Beast that described him in his write-up was that he really seems like a rotational player at first. And that's something that gives me a little bit of pause. Again, not as much for a best ball or not as much for long-term. But again, I'm a believer in I want to see some production in year one. Granted, there are some situations like I loved and I drafted Trenton Simpson a bunch of times last year, knowing he wasn't going to get year one production, but he was set up in a great place for year 2 success. But I would still prefer someone who comes out in year 1 and produces and then can build off of that rather than just have to bet on year 2. So, I still like Trice. I'm just a little bit scared away by that idea that he might be someone who comes in lower snap counts, especially depending on the landing spot he gets. And I have less confidence of him getting the snaps that are needed to be a consistent IDP asset relative to some of the other guys that are in this same range.
Yeah, this seems maybe like one of those, like a Miles Murphy, Lucas Van Ness types that we might see more production from year 2, year 3, which is, I mean, most defensive linemen, right? We've talked about that a lot on this show, that you have to be patient with these guys. There are very few Will Andersons and Micah Parsons that come in and make an immediate impact.
And this is kind of an episode where we're kind of mining for some gems here. You know, we're not talking about Latu. We're not talking about Dallas Turner. I mean, we know those are all going to be the top guys off the board. I think Bralen Trice might actually get a little bit of draft capital. 101 total tackles at Washington, 28 and a half TFLs and 18 sacks over 3 seasons there at Washington. Also, too, shout out Washington for just having an insane amount of talent coming out in this draft. Bralen Trice, shout out Woolard here later on. You're going to hear about Edifuan Ulofoshio. Fun little linebacker. I don't know that he'll get much play, but you know, it's pretty good at Washington. And then Romo Dunze, Jalen Polk, Jalen McMillan, 3 really good wide receivers. But yeah, Bralen Trice is fun. Is he a little bit developmental? Probably. But Scott's exactly right. The numbers are pretty good in college, and the metrics are kind of backing it up as well.
Yeah, Addy, what's your take here? Because you were the lowest of the 3.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, 16.6% pressure rate. So that's good, but it's Washington. I mean, and the tackle rate's not good. It's 4.3% career tackle rate. That's one of the worst of the edge rushers. So I don't know. I think he's going to be a 2nd round pick, but there's just so many. There's not a lot of leagues where he's going to be that valuable, right? Because you got to start a lot of defensive ends. Otherwise, I just feel like he's going to be a clogger. Yeah. Like if you only start 2 defensive ends, when am I going to start this guy? Not much. But if you're in a league like on Sleeper and you start 4 defensive linemen, 5 defensive linemen, yeah, he could be a viable option for you, a DL4, DL5, you know, week to week. But it might take a little bit of time to get there. And I don't know. I don't know how high the floor is or the ceiling is with him. Like, is he going to be is he going to ever get like 15 sacks in a season? Probably not. But so I mean, he's fine. But I'm not really excited about any of these guys that are projected to be like 2nd to 3rd round picks, you know?
I was just looking to see if he is a 3rd round pick, which is where Dane has him right now. Who were some of the edges going in last year's 3rd round, right? Just to kind of give you an idea of like, these are the caliber of players
NFL
that you
draft
might see.
or like rookie draft?
NFL draft.
Okay,
yeah, because that's where he's projected right now as a 3rd round pick by Dane. So you see guys like the highest one taken was, well, I guess technically Drew Sanders, but he was taken, I think, with the anticipation of being a linebacker and just got moved there. You also see Zach Harrison, edge, Ohio State, going to Atlanta. Actually. And then here are the ones where it really starts to get interesting. Byron Young, Yaya Diaby was a 3rd round pick. So
those are actually really good.
Right. So I think it can happen. Kobe Turner was in there. There was actually quite a few defensive tackles in the 3rd round there. So
Byron Young was a lead athlete though. Who was the other one? Oh, Yaya Diaby was in there.
Yep. He was.
He was also a really good athlete, I believe.
Where was Kansas?
Bralen Trice he's just 7.43 RAS.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's fine. But I mean, for me, I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to edge rushers. Like it's like elite or nothing.
Elite or bust for you.
I think the key term here is rotational. In the NFL, that might be what he is. He's a rotational pass rusher.
Yeah.
I don't know that he's going to have a heavy snap share anywhere.
Yeah, Scott, is there, you're in some deeper leagues, 5 round rookie draft. This guy's probably not getting drafted, is he?
No, I wouldn't think so. And, you know, some of this conversation really speaks to how fluid the rankings are. I realized that I was one of the higher people on him. And then in my initial description, I was like, yeah, I'm a little bit down on him because that rotational label and that additional research just came out a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So I suspect I'm going to be closer to consensus, but I still see him with that really great stable pass rush metric, having the potential of, I'd say a ceiling is like a Bryce Huff, you know, good pass rusher, but just not necessarily getting all the snaps.
Yeah.
So you catch him in the right week, he can be a good play for you.
Yeah.
But I think he's probably going to slide down a little bit now that I have some more of that information.
And just like Scott's saying, this is all fluid. We're about to talk about this next guy who I will all automatically go ahead and admit I'm too low on, because now Twitter's, been a buzz here the last week or so with, wow, is Marshawn Kneeland going to be a back of the first round edge taken?
That was just today. I think I saw that news kind of come out. I think buzz is starting to build for this guy.
Mm-hmm.
If he's a back of the first round, this is a dude that will be shooting up.
Absolutely.
Rookie rankings. Yeah. Marshawn Kneeland, edge, Western Michigan. Scott, you are currently the highest on him at 14. Adam has him at 25. Bobo at 37. I anticipate that he will be a riser for probably everyone around this table. But I'm curious why you initially had him so high in your rankings.
Yeah, and what I think you're seeing happening in Twitter and in the conversations among GMs is they took a look at my rankings and thought, this guy is someone we've really overlooked.
Yeah. We were on the old Professor IDP
in the ranks.
site.
Yes. Crazy.
Yeah. No, I really like Marshawn Kneeland. To me, he is somewhat a developmental guy, and that's always a little bit of cause for concern. But he does have that 92 stable pass rush metric. He has a 100 stable run defense metric, which I love that floor. I know Sam Hubbard is a guy who gets dinged a lot for the sacks being inconsistent. And last year, the run defense was even a little inconsistent, but he has traditionally been a really high floor guy because he's a great run defender and he can occasionally get you those sacks or those fumbles or those big splash plays. But I see Kneeland in sort of a similar vein in terms of he has some pass rush skills, great run defender for that solid floor. One of the things I saw that is kind of a double-edged sword, kind of a backhanded compliment to me in the Beast was the best is yet to come with him.
I was just looking at that. Yep.
So again, that gives me a little bit of pause that there might be some patience needed with him, but we see patience needed with edge rushers all the time. Not to keep talking about the Bengals, which is, you might have gathered is my team. But Miles Murphy, I've listened to him on the buy sell trade show that you guys just did. And to me, he's a guy that you got to hold because there wasn't much expectation for year one, even though the talent's there. I can see Kneeland being one of those kinds of guys who, even if you don't draft him this year, I could see writing him up next year as someone that you might want to trade for, because I could see him playing well in the time when he gets to play. And if he lands in some of the places where I've seen him mock to, like the Bears or like the Titans, he's going to have opportunity because there's a lot of holes on those teams in the line and he's going to have chances to play. So I really think Kneeland might end up with a good draft capital. I think he might end up in a good landing spot, and some of those stable metrics, more so than just the 1 year splash performance, are those things that I really find myself gravitating towards.
Yeah, I was looking to see how many edge rushers went in the first round of the NFL draft last year. It was 7 edge rushers. So I'm like, Marshawn Kneeland, is he really a first round pick?
Could be. His team falls in love with him.
Exactly. He's Dane's 5th overall edge, and he is his 32nd overall player.
Wow.
So if you're inside that top probably 8 to 9, we saw 7 edge rushers go in last year's draft. I mean, like I said, the most important thing you can do in the modern NFL is pass the football and stop the pass, right? Mm-hmm. So pass rush and cornerback, that's the reason you see these positions at such a premium in the NFL draft. But yeah, I mean, you see, it was a run, especially at the end of the first round last year with Felix Anudike-Uzomah, Nolan Smith, Miles Murphy. You also had
probably see the same thing again. I mean, just because that 5th year, I think teams want to get into such a valuable position.
Will McDonald, Lucas Van Ness. I mean, it was just, Tyree Wilson, Will Anderson. So it's like it was a glut of edge rushers in the first round. So it's like Marshawn Kneeland, really? Yeah, probably, because we're going to see 5 to 7 or 8 edge rushers, I'd say, go first round. But
he's one of the best athletes.
I was going to ask, Addy, why do you think he's rising?
Because of the combine, 6'3", 267, 34.5-inch arms, 83-inch wingspan.
That's humongous.
That's one of the best wingspans in the class. One of the best wingspans of all edge rushers in my dynasty ranks. I like how that's a new thing. They haven't always recorded wings, but they're the last like 3 or 4 years. It's a consistent.
Love wings.
9.54 RAS.
Is that the highest of the edges?
It's up there. I think we got Chop Robinson. He was way up there, of course. Dallas Turner it's better than Dallas Turner, but Turner didn't do everything either. So that hurt him. But yeah, Kneeland tore it up, man. 35.5 inch vert. 911, never forget broad.
There we go.
7.02 three cone. That was one of the better three cones. But not a lot of sub 7 three cones out of this group.
So I think the question is, Kneeland gets first round draft capital. Is he a 5-round rookie pick selection?
I think so. He'll be drafted in the 5th round.
I think so too. That feels right. Because I mean, guys like Lucas Van Ness, Miles Murphy, FAU, all those dudes got drafted last year in our main draft, didn't they?
Yeah. But especially once people start digging into the athleticism. And then the stats were pretty good too. He was like Scott mentioned, 4.3 tackles per game in college. That was up there. It might have been the best of the edge guys.
All right. Marshawn Kneeland, number 3 on your list. Scott, number 4 is Braden Fiske. Another guy that you are higher on than consensus. IDL out of Florida State. Talk to us about Braden Fiske.
Yeah, and I fully understand this one more than I think any of the others we've talked about. I'm really on an island because I'm looking at 31 and 65 as his other 2 spots, and I have him as 15 overall.
But you do love some beefy boys in the middle.
I do, and I'm also not scared off by age. And I'm sure one of the dings on Fiske is that he's 24 already.
Years old.
Yeah, we know Addy is ageist when it comes to
about that.
NFL rookies. How old is he?
He's 24.
Okay.
Yeah. Just bullying these little boys.
These little 18-year-old children.
So sad.
That little 5'7" linebacker that Mike brought up.
For me, I'm happy if I can get a good 3 years out of a player. I mean, heck, a lot of times I'm happy if I can get 1 year out of a player, win a championship, and then if they fade off into the sunset, that's fine.
Or like Addy said, get one good year and cash out. That's what we're looking at maybe with Peyton Wilson.
Yep.
Can we get one good rookie year and then boom, cash out for those knees or back or neck gives out?
So I used to model age a lot more in all of my rankings, and I've started to do that less and less. And sometimes it's burned me. I was a huge Jordan Akins guy, the tight end who was, I think, 34 coming out.
He had
college.
3 kids and a mortgage.
Yeah, and he did not pan out. And all of my friends in every league I play in remind me of that every year around this time.
Of course.
But, with Fiske, he is only 24, which is
only 24
young compared to some.
Yeah.
But his pass rush grade is phenomenal. Again, that stable pass rush metric at a 97, you really, really like to see that. A heavy B gap, doesn't really play a whole lot of other spots along the line if you look at his snap distribution last year, but he's very productive out of that B gap. If you look at his grades last year, his second highest grade was out of that B gap. It was a 72.1. And so he's someone who, when he gets on the field, he'll likely be on the field. I think his athletic numbers, if I remember right, he tested very well.
Yes, he did.
For things like RAS. So to me, he's a guy who could fit in a lot of teams, make an immediate impact on a lot of teams. And that's what I'm looking for in rookies. I'm looking for guys who, again, I'll be patient with some, and especially if I have a taxi squad in a league, I'm happy to let them sit there for a year or 2 to see if they pan out or not. But I would love to see players who can contribute early, or at least flash that potential early. That's enough to help me to signal what I should be doing with them moving forward. And to me, Fiske is a guy who can absolutely be productive in year 1.
Yeah. I wanted to, real quick, before we continue on with Fiske, did not want to skip over some of the landing spots for the guys we just talked about. Marshawn Kneeland, Bears and Titans. I think we're still waiting for that Chicago edge rusher opposite Montez Sweat.
Be pretty good.
Be pretty nice. Titans would be good as well for Mr. Kneeland. And then Bralen Trice, you had the Rams. So opposite Byron Young there. So let's talk about Braden Fiske. You had
opposite Michael Hoyt.
Michael Hoyt.
You love it, Bob?
I hate it.
Yeah. Bobby doesn't want any. Well, who do you want, Bob? What do you want for your Rammies? Wide receiver?
I want Aaron Donald to come out of the
you're just sad over that.
That's true.
You're just still heartbroken.
Yeah, who do you want there? What, 19? Pick 19, is that what you got? Is that right?
Yes, you're right, Adam. I don't know. I'm gonna have to chew on that one.
Let's pray on it.
Yeah.
I want either Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, one of these cornerbacks, unless like a Brian Thomas is still there, one of these kind of top 5 wide receivers. I think Rome's going top 10. I don't think he'll be available. I've seen a lot of chatter about us trading up to get, I think it was Brock Bowers, maybe, which I Chris Ballard does not trade up, so that's just kind of draft lunacy.
Do we think what pick do y'all have?
15, I believe.
Brock Bowers won't be available there.
That's what I don't think y'all have to trade up.
That's my take.
I don't think
too.
y'all have to trade up. I've heard the Jets mocked with the Brock Bowers a lot.
The fantasy heads want Brock Bowers to be like a top 10 pick. I don't know that that's going to actually happen. I think 15, you're liable to be sitting there looking at him straight in the face.
Looking at what we need as far as help on the roster, cornerback makes the most sense.
See, I think that's opposite to the Rams. I think the Rams have brought in a bunch of like old corners that are back again. Tre'Davious White. They brought back guy from the Jags, Darius
Williams. Yep.
Maybe we do go a guy like Kneeland. I don't know. We do need some edge presence. Anyways, I don't know. I'll have to think on that one.
Sounds like your Vikes. Every mock I see is them trading up to take one of these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Because are you really going to start Darnold for 17 games?
He can fling it.
He can fling it to the other team pretty well too. I don't know about all that. All right, Addy, I think I know why you're going to be lower on Braden Fiske. It's because he is approaching 30 already.
Yeah, very old. Stinks. No, he's good. I mean, he 9.89 RAS.
I was going to say
Scott
one of the
did mention
higher
that.
ones coming out of the combine, right?
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I'm trying to be less snobby about guys, right? They don't have to be perfect anymore. We see a lot of imperfect players,
especially age. We talked about it with NIL now and the transfer portal. You're going to see guys staying in college longer and coming out later.
And this was a weird year with COVID and all that stuff too. It was in the middle of all this. So I'm not looking as much into that stuff for this draft. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to be snobby anymore. We saw Zach Sealer have a really, really good year for us. Guys like Andrew Van Ginkel, Alex Anzalone, like all these guys that have been labeled as bad football players or whatever, they still find a way to become relevant, just need an opportunity. Fiske should get, I would imagine he's going to be drafted within the first 2-3 rounds.
Mm-hmm. I would think so.
That's going to get him opportunity at some point. Hopefully sooner rather than later. But yeah, I think he's a fine option. We'll be out there for you on waivers. He's a cost of a mouse click.
Yep.
Like those guys.
Third round projection for Dane. And there were a ton of defensive tackles taken in the third round. So I think that's a good proxy to kind of look at like what happened last year. That's the most recent data we have that kind of points you in the direction of what the NFL is valuing. So yeah, I could see Fiske getting a third round draft capital.
And a lot of these defensive tackles are getting the bags as of
yes,
late.
they are.
Yeah.
Yes, they are.
Yeah. And in a lot of the 2 or 3 round mocks or the ones that have, best day 2 fits for teams, I've seen Fiske for the Texans, the Chargers. I'd like both of those because they're both good situations with nice edges around them, good path to playing time. I've also seen the Browns and the Panthers. Those two I'm a little bit more lukewarm about just because Carolina is in such disarray in general. The more I think about it, I would like him with the Texans an awful lot. I could see the Chargers with Harbaugh, going Chris Jenkins instead, because we know he's going to take at least one Michigan.
At least.
Yes, he is.
Maybe all.
But I think I would really like him.
All Michigan.
Yeah.
Texans would be nice. I think that's a team on the rise, the defense on the rise. You like D'Amico Ryans there as the head coach. So Juice is in the building now.
Danico Autry getting slept on. He's a massive value in these best balls.
Yes,
that's what I was just thinking. If one of these guys goes to the Titans, my Autry shares and BBs are going to take a little hit. Maybe
He's
not.
in Houston now.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
It was like early on.
This offseason.
Yeah. Like early on in free agency.
How old is Autry now? 30.
He is old.
34.
He's up there.
I gotcha.
Is he still in the grown man strength?
Man, he keeps getting better and better. Yeah, I think so.
Sebastian Joseph Day is now a Jaguar. Who is the IDL in Los Angeles with the Chargers?
Boy, who's there still?
Maybe nobody left.
Yeah, we'll look up the R lads there.
I'm not even sure.
Anyways,
but it's one of those things too, where when it's a completely new GM head coach, I don't really put a lot of stock into who's left over from the previous regime, unless it's like an elite superstar level player.
There is a hilarious play of Braden Fiske running onto the field late and just blowing up an offensive lineman and wrecking the play just because he was like late onto the field. So
he got a running start.
Yeah, he got about a 30-yard head start.
That's that high motor. He's got that dog in him.
Timed it well.
Can't measure that.
People should do that stuff.
Like get the lineman kind of running like the what is that? The arena football?
Yeah.
You get those wide receivers with a good 10-yard
start.
Or it's like my son playing Madden.
Braden Fiske.
Yes.
Yeah.
Run around and get like a full head of steam and try to time the snap.
Back in the day, you could get like around him and like be like right there by the quarterback and then just drill him.
Yeah.
They don't let you do that anymore.
They don't?
I don't think so, right?
They just blow the play dead?
They do. They let you do that.
Okay, wow.
But it is an immediate 15-yarder.
All right.
It's fun to do.
worth it.
Still,
Yeah,
you just blow.
sure.
You just send a message.
It's just 15.
In his defense, he's not usually blowing up quarterbacks. It's usually on extra points.
Okay.
Where
There
he'll
you go.
just try to
Yeah.
sprint to get
Yeah,
the block.
that's fun.
It's so much fun to block a kick in video
Well,
games.
It is.
Matter.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
good.
real life too.
Well, I was looking up the nose tackles and defensive tackles on our lads for the Chargers. Poona Ford, and then Ogbania. Yeah. Otito Ogbania. That's
Oh,
who else
of
they have.
course.
One of the Ogbanias.
Gerard Clark, Christopher Hinton. So,
Yeah.
yeah, they need some help on the interior, it sounds like.
Chris Jenkins, come on down.
Come on down, my friend. All right. Well, let's keep it rolling, boys, and talk about the next guy here on the list, Scott. And it is Adisa Isaac. It is the edge from Penn State. Addy has him at 31, Bobo at 35, and you are at 19. So talk to us about Mr. Isaac and what you like so much about him.
Yeah, I think he's someone else who is going to be moving up boards. I think he's going to get. I've seen him in the second round in a lot of 2-round mocks recently. He's a bit of a prospect. Didn't have as much production at Penn State, but a lot of Penn State defensive linemen are really talented and don't have a lot of production. So I have 88% stable pass rush grade, 86 run defense grade. In the Beast, he was comped to Josh Sweat, which I know might trigger different emotions.
Zero value
on,
right now.
Yeah, but
Hate it.
But I would be happy with that if he had, a couple of really good years like Josh Sweat has had. I think that's completely feasible, and I think that he's a lot more polished than some of the other guys that you're thinking about around here at Edge, like Jonah Ellis. I got Brandon Dorless as the next guy after him. To me, there's a pretty huge drop off after Adisa Isaac, and I like him more than a couple of the other guys that are in this same range. So to me, he's got the talent. He's played good competition in the Big Ten. Great PFF grades, good comp in the Beast. There's a lot for me to like about him, and his consensus is pretty good as well. So I feel like this isn't me being a homer, because if you can see, I'm wearing a.
Hey, show him that hat. Look at that camera real
There you
good.
go. Penn State hat.
So to be clear, I do all of these rankings blind in terms of my
He
fandom.
closes his eyes.
Yeah. Otherwise, there wouldn't be nearly as many.
Gets his Braille
Michigan
keyboard
guy-
out.
There's nothing spelled correctly in
Yes.
there.
The letters, it's just numbers in there for some reason.
A lot of work after the
Yes.
fact to account for
It's
just.
like, why
those
do I
things.
do this?
It's a bad process.
Yeah. We're reevaluating.
Yeah.
We're reevaluating. But yeah, I think you hit on something important there. The Penn State edge rushers, there's just some, do they get penalized if they get sacks? Like, is
Yeah.
it just not allowed?
They know they can touch the quarterback.
Yeah, right?
They're team players. They generate pressure. They get the
There's-
hits. It's
Right.
They read the pressures, the PFF pressures
Uh-huh.
after every game.
See, I'm helping.
Yeah.
I'm doing good stuff.
I graded
guys.
well.
Yeah.
I know I didn't get a sack all season, but
The nerds love me.
the nerds love me. Yeah. I did see second to third round draft capital for this guy. And it does kind of feel like you said, Scott, a little bit of a cliff. You have Jonah Ellis, which I think, some folks like Jonah Ellis, but then, you're getting down into the Brandon Dorless and the Austin Bookers of the world, Gabriel Murphy. So it kind of feels like he is sort of that bottom edge of like, does Isaac get drafted in a 5-round rookie? Probably not.
He's a 5th rounder, maybe.
Yeah.
6th round, 7th round rookie
Yeah,
drafts.
sure.
Yeah, he's in those for sure.
Yeah.
And I
He's getting
think
drafted
he's-
in Scott's leagues for sure.
Yes.
he will
Your
be taken-
80-14
he will be
relegation
taken-
promotion
301.
leagues. Yeah.
But no, I think he's someone who could also benefit an awful lot from landing spot. If he gets somewhere where either he has a really clear path to playing time, which I've seen him mock to the Commanders, he would absolutely have that there because they've got Doris Armstrong and I don't think anything else beyond
KJ
that.
Henry, I think.
And I've seen him also mock to the Lions. And I would
Dante
love
Fowler.
him going to the Lions because
That's the
he can sit a year.
And then when
behind-
Marcus Davenport,
sorry.
eventually gets hurt.
Yeah, I should have said he could sit for a few weeks.
Yes. And then Marcus
come in.
Davenport and his carb face.
The pressure rate's going to be good.
It's going to be
I'll say that.
real good. A lot of points for that.
But yeah, I like Adisa Isaac. The scouts seem to think something good of him. His grades are good, and I'm willing to take a flyer on him in a 5th round, 6th round. I do a lot of 8-round drafts. So when you guys talk about the 5th round, we're just getting warmed up.
Yeah, we're not even breaking a sweat yet.
So yeah, he'll get drafted in most of my leagues.
Nice RAS.
Yeah.
What's the RAS, Bobo?
928 RAS.
Okay, not too bad.
At 6'4", ran a 4.74, which is pretty impressive. 1.64 10 split. He had a 9-second shuttle. Nope, that's not right. He had a 4.2-second shuttle. He had a sub 7 3-cone, which is nice for somebody at 6'4", 247. It will be interesting. Scott's exactly right. A guy like this that lands in the perfect spot for us is going to be elevated, and all of a sudden now might have an opportunity. Honestly, a guy like this to the Rams, maybe in a 3rd or 4th round in the NFL draft, all of a sudden now walks into maybe a little bit of relevancy. And a lot of this is, Scott's exactly right. You're looking at like 5th, 6th, 7th rounders in some of your rookie mocks, but how many of these guys, like every once in a while, some of these guys pop off in their rookie year. And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, who's the first one to it? Who's the first one who's kind of been keeping up with a guy like this who had opportunity, maybe has a little bit of pedigree, coaching staff likes him. Opportunity is, big thing in the NFL.
Yeah, and we saw reading that list of 3rd round edges, both Byron Young and Yaya Diaby flashing in their first year. So even Zach Harrison getting a little bit of run in Atlanta. That's probably a nice little sleeper there. I mean, who is there in Atlanta right now? Unless they can. Yeah, Ebiketie. Yeah.
Are you dropping Ebiketie to make room for Isaac?
Oh, I don't like to drop Ebiketie at all, but yes, I probably would. I'd probably, if I got offered straight up the pick to take Isaac for Ebiketie, I think I would do that, especially if he ends up in one of those 2 spots with Detroit to be opposite Hutch moving forward, or in Washington to contribute right away.
What if Isaac goes to Washington? You want Adisa Isaac or you want Malcolm Kuntz?
Oh, Kuntz.
I think Kuntz, yeah.
And Kuntz for me too.
I think it's important though to go through like the bottom of your roster and be like, who do I rather have? This vet. I'm trying to think like names you would like. Joe Tryon. You want Joe Tryon, or do you want Joe Tryon's about to step into a maybe his biggest role?
I don't think so, man.
They're gonna draft somebody. Probably.
I think that's the thing. But if he somehow, his days are numbered.
If he somehow were to just get opportunity,
I don't know. I think I'd just rather re-roll and try to get somebody with more upside than a guy who lost his job to a 3rd round rookie. Yeah. I don't know. I think, but those are the questions you have to be asking.
Exactly.
Churn the bottom of that roster.
I'm having trouble thinking of names. Joe Tryon just.
It's a long day on the disc golf course.
You've had I'd had a garage sale this morning.
Yeah, you've been at it.
Tough.
You've been getting after it.
Sure.
Proud of you. Proud of you for being here.
I only know one way, and it's hard as hell.
Hard as hell.
Sure.
That is true. Multiple ways.
Yes.
Well, Adisa Isaac is your second to last guy, Scott. And the last one on your list is Mo Kamara. So let's talk about Mo Kamara. I wanted to make sure I give you the proper credit here. You are lower than Addy on Mo Kamara, who has him at 16. Bobo has him at 42. You have him at 46. Edge out of Colorado for those unfamiliar with Mo Kamara's game. Tell us about Mr. Kamara. What are you maybe a little lower on, at least than some of the people around this table?
Yeah. So the biggest thing for me that's holding him back in my ranks is my starting point. So my starting point is I take the consensus of a whole bunch of scouts, a whole bunch of big boards, and I use that to have my baseline before I start making fantasy relevant adjustments and everything like that. Out of a possible 100 is the ceiling for the way I convert those scores down to a 30 is the floor. Kamara got a 61. So he was starting at a low point where even if I like some of his intangibles, and I do like some of his intangibles, I mean, he has a 99 stable metrics, pass rush, and true pass sets. So that's a mouthful. But he has some things to really like about his game, at 83 in run defense. So, that's good too. But when I saw that initial assessment of what the wisdom of the crowd had to say about Kamara, that knocked him down for a little bit for me. When I saw how high Adam was on him, I thought, okay, let me look a little bit more closely. And so I looked him up in the Beast, and the Beast did have a comp for him, and he was described as a poor man's Ogbo Okoronkwo, which made me feel a little bit more comfortable about leaving him down at 46.
Which Ogbo Okoronkwo feels like a poor man's version of a better version of him, right? So you're like homeless man's at this point in terms of the comp. So yeah, I mean, not the most kind of sterling outlook for Mo Kamara here in Dane's draft guide. Is 18th overall edge rusher. He has him with a 5th, 6th round grade. So a little bit of an uphill climb. So that's kind of the starting point for you, is like, what's the perceived kind of draft capital looking like? Is that right? Or
yeah, so it's a whole bunch of things. It's the perceived draft capital. It's the perceived talent. You know, some people are more film folks. Some people really like to just crunch the numbers and have their pet numbers. I try not to lean into any one thing. So what I do is I take the consensus of oftentimes dozens, if not up to close to 100 different analysts who are using different data points. And using that to sort of slot everyone in terms of where they're at in terms of consensus talent evaluations.
Yeah.
And I use that consensus talent as the starting point for everything. And the crowd, you know, there are some people who are higher on him, and I get that. Some people who are even lower on him. But just the overall assessment from the whole industry is, you know, not necessarily very sterling. And even though I think there is some definite fantasy upside for me, my fantasy metrics are multipliers that I use on that initial score. And so if you're really low, no matter what happens, you're not going to jump up too much. It's really more going to help, you know, shift out and sift through the crowd of people who are similar to each other. To me, you know, he's a little bit lower. I have him right by Javon Solomon out of Troy, Gabriel Murphy out of UCLA. I have a little bit higher, but you know, it's all this group of guys that are pretty interchangeable to me. And these are guys that I don't really expect to get drafted, even in maybe my 8-round drafts. And if they get some good draft capital, 5th, 6th, you know, something there at least, so they're not UDFAs or they have a good fit. Or another thing I like is if a team trades up to get somebody, I note that because it shows a greater commitment to them, likely to give them more of a chance. So there are some paths to him improving a little bit in my ranks, but that underlying starting score is just hard to overcome.
Yeah. Addy, we're doing a rookie ranking update here soon. Do you think Mo will be right, stick where he is, or maybe falling a little bit in your ranks?
Yeah, he'll probably fall a little bit. But he does a lot of stuff that I like, you know, 7.96 RES, 6'1", 240, 48, 32-inch arm, 78.5-inch wing, 4.57 40, 10.3 on the broad, 34.5 vert. So, I mean, he's explosive. And then you look at like the pressure rate was 18.1% pressure rate for his career. That was second only to Latu in my ranks. Then productive. I know it was Colorado State, but I mean, you know, 45.5 TFLs across 46 games. I mean, that's really good. So I'm just betting on the production. He's not a bad athlete, and I think that he could get decent capital. I've seen him all over the place and a lot of different, you know, mocks. So
like as you get later in the draft, the projected kind of range for guys can be like, he could be a 3rd rounder, he could be a 6th rounder.
Everyone's rising and falling on guys like crazy right now, man. So I mean, these guys, yeah, I mean, who knows? We will all find out here in a couple weeks.
And it only takes one team. To say,
exactly
no,
right.
You know, the consensus may be 5th or 6th round, but we like him in the 3rd. He's a top 100 player for us. You know, you never know.
He gets 2nd round capital. Everyone's going to be a little more excited about him.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's, I think he's a fine prospect though. But he runs in, you know, with a lot of these guys.
Yeah.
A lot of guys are just, we don't have outside of those like top 3 or 4, you know, that look elite as far as metrics go.
Kind of get lumped together.
Yeah. Outside of that, I mean, yeah. Pick
Just
your flavor.
It's like, yeah.
Pick your flavor.
Who do you like best? Like, what do you want? Do you want production? Do you want RAS? Do you want, you know, are you waiting to see the draft capital or landing spot? I think it could be.
It's also like, do you want to draft this edge 6, 7, 8, or do you want to go get a safety 3 or 4? You know, I mean, you can get, you can play your draft however you want to play it. I think just get the value.
And I think that's one of the good things that Josh did on the mock a couple episodes ago, to where when we started getting into these Austin Bookers, Mo Kamaras, and whatnot, Josh jumped back up and was like, you know what? I'm going to grab Kenyon Mitchell. You know what? I'm going to grab Nate Wiggins, Kool-Aid McKinstry. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head who you drafted, but those guys are all going to be like first-round cornerbacks. And you're exactly right, Adam. Some of those safeties, some of those cornerbacks are going to be really, really relevant. So do you want to put a guy like a Tyler Nubin on your roster in the 4th round, 5th round, or do you want to maybe wait on a guy like Mo Kamara? I see the upside. I see the RAS, 8.62 RAS. Everything's elite. The speed is elite. The explosive grade is great. He's a little bit small. Josh is right. It's almost kind of like you're kind of going edge shopping after the first 4. Do you want your guy a little bit bigger, but he doesn't have much production? Do you want a guy like Mo Kamara who's 6'1", but his production was crazy? Some of these guys we're definitely going to need, like, I don't know, we're going to need NFL help with. Is this guy a 3rd round edge, or do y'all value him more in the 6th round?
Yeah, and how quickly can he get snaps?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yep.
It's the